This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by the good-looking folks at GoDaddy.com. Use our code Linux and save yourself some cash. Welcome to the Linux Action Show, Season 23, Episode 10. My name is Chris.
And my name is Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Hey.
Should I tell the folks about the big show we got coming up?
Let's hear it.
All right. Well, in the second half of the show, we're going to chat with the founder of the OpenShot project. Jonathan Thomas is joining us, and we're going to chat all things OpenShot. They just had a new big release. Lots of goodies we're going to cover, and I've got a lot of questions as somebody who does some video production, and we've been taking questions from our live IRC chat room.
Good questions.
So we'll be going through that in the second half of the show. But in the first half of the show, we're going to go through the news. We've got some interesting news stories from the week that we want to cover, and in this segment, it's our picks, and at the end of the show, it'll be emails this week. We got about 4 or 5 we're going to go through.
Sweet deal.
All right, Matt, why don't we start with our Runs Linux pick this week? It's pretty interesting. I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation.
I know we
one.
gave it a few shots, and I think we just decided to wing it. So
The Linux-powered Priortis satellite safely in orbit. So this satellite runs Linux, and it's a test satellite trying out a new sort of impulse-like drive, kind of almost like a drive out of Star Trek.
Oh, yeah?
And and it's as Proiteris. I don't know, Matt.
If you roll your R's, you're never wrong.
It's difficult. But they actually use Linux software on the ground and in the satellite to manage it. So they've got this engine up there that they're trying things out with.
Okay.
And they have 2 different Linux computers on board. One Linux computer manages all of the sensor systems and the engine systems and all that kind of stuff. And the other Linux computer in this satellite that is orbiting the Earth right now manages like all the ground spaceship communications, all the software updates and management.
It's
and things like
compartmentalized.
that.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and then one has control over the camera, so it's sort of separated out like that. It's really cool. So, anyways, the reason why I'm butchering the pronunciation on this is it's coming from a project that I think is out of Japan, and it's part of a university project to just sort of trial this type of rocket for potential use in future satellites, because it would mean if they could get this kind of engine to work, it would mean a lot lighter, cheaper, and more reliable satellites, which is a goal the whole industry is working on.
Makes sense. Economics is good. Yeah.
So the the crazy name stands for Project of OIT Electric Rocket Engine Onboard Small Spaceship. That's why it's hard to pronounce.
Wow, because that's a lot of information in the title.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, very cool. 2 Linux computers that are taking care of that rocket up there.
Sweet deal.
There's a video of some of the ground control software they use that runs on Linux in the show notes if you guys want to go check that out.
Sweet.
All right, Matt, man, do we have a good show coming up this week? But first, I want to say good morning to the fine folks over at GoDaddy.com. Woo! Now, it was Mom's birthday last week, Matt. And I decided this might be a little geeky, but I got Mom a WordPress blog for her birthday.
Okay. That's cool.
Right?
All right,
okay.
Yeah.
So here's why I'm not just like a geek that just can't get past technology. What it really is my mom does a lot of online, she tries to, but she's been not so successful, of taking the artwork that she does on her computer with like the Adobe suite of software, and then she wants to put it online to send to a local restaurant so they can see what her artwork is, and then she puts the artwork up in their restaurant.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? So it's kind of like an online portfolio.
Okay.
Well, this doesn't take a ton of processor power because she's got a few visitors a week, right?
Okay.
This was perfect. So I went over to GoDaddy.com and I used our code 599Linux to get her a .com for $5.99.
Nice.
Right?
Score.
Which is perfect. Now earlier I had got hosting and we still have this great code. It expires at the end of this month and GoDaddy has extended it.
Yep.
It was set to expire and they said, you know what, folks loved it. We're extending it. Bonus round promo.
Nice.
Expires at the end of this month, and it is the code GO20OFF6. So I used this earlier. I have one Linux shared host. Use the code GO20OFF6. I save 20% off. You can use that GO20OFF6 to save 20% off any purchase you're making. I opted to go shared hosting. I also used it recently to save $60 on a whole batch of renewals. Because when you're doing like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9
that's
renewals,
where it really hits home for you.
So GO20OFF6 will definitely save you some money there. But this one shared host, I now have a website going on there for my mom.
Nice.
I have a website running on there for Angela. And all I have to do is, if either one of them needs a WordPress update, it's just one button push. One button push from the GoDaddy panel. So if you need to do something like this, the holidays are coming up, you have a family member that pulls you aside and says, hey, you're at dinner at Thanksgiving, something like that. Hey, how do I get this set up? I got a tire shop. I want to put my tires online.
Bam, done.
Send them to GoDaddy. Use our codes GO20 off 6 to save 20% off of anything you're buying. Or if you're going to give them a .com, the best way to save some money is $5.99 Linux.
Can't beat that with a stick.
Nope. And thank you to GoDaddy for their longtime support of the Linux Action Show. And thank you everyone who supports GoDaddy and uses our codes and thereby is supporting this show.
You bet.
All right, Matt.
Good stuff.
I have a really awesome Android pick, and it was like the planets were aligning this week on this pick. So my pick this week is EasyNetScan for Android. And EasyNetScan was emailed to me, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting your name, but I sent you a thank you back, which...
Yeah, that's good.
That's something.
That's good. Yeah.
It was also submitted to the subreddit, and I think it's because they just did an update on this last Monday, I believe it was. And EasyNetScan is a free app for your Android device that turns it into a full-fledged network diagnostics and really intelligence-gathering device. You got a chance to play with it a little bit.
I was
before the
impressed
show.
with the UI, and I was also impressed in the fact that I'll tell you, if you're... you've got someone you're trying to work for and they're on the fence about hiring you, you can actually go and run a little bit of scan there and show them and all the things you can help them with. So it's kind of cool. You know?
Here's a perfect example as a contractor on how I would use this. Okay, so I walk in there and I say, they say, we have a problem where our internet connection is dropping after we do a lot of downloads.
Right.
And we have to go in there and we have to reset our router. Can you troubleshoot why that might be? Well, just when using this app, you connect to their wireless access point. It scans all of the devices that are connected to the network that it can find. So in my case here, it finds all my machines, 17 different of them, 17 different machines, which is ridiculous. And on here, I can see, here's their router because I can see it's 10.1.10.1.
Yeah.
So that must be their default gateway. Oh, well, I see on here because it's using SNMP and it's using NIC identification with Nmap. I can see that it's a Westel Technologies router.
Oh.
Well, you know what?
That's some information right there.
As a matter of fact, I happen to know that Westel routers overheat sometimes if you have too many connections going through them at once. So your problem is you have a Westel router. And so if you think about it, the value that I can add as a contractor, I'm walking in there, I'm scanning, and within the first 10, 15 minutes of our conversation, I have a pretty good idea of something I can look into.
Exactly.
And that's just doing it from my phone. And it's also, it'll tell you all of the open ports on somebody's machine. It'll let you do a trace route from your phone. It'll let you send Wake on LAN packets. And what I love about it is it'll actually discover every device that supports Wake on LAN on your network, and then it saves them in here, which is really fantastic.
Oh, that's cool. So you can just call them back up later. Yeah.
And
Nice.
it also, if you have devices that support SNMP, it'll walk down SNMP lane and query like the public string, and then if you can do that, you'll actually get back like versions of software, memory utilization. You can get on switches. You can get information about packets.
There.
Oh yeah, big stuff.
Big stuff. And that's
so you can see here on this machine, because this machine had SNMP turned on, they're able to get the version of FaceTime 1.1, Firefox 15.01, so they can actually pull back software versions using their phone. If they have SNMP turned on and open to the public, or if you know the password.
People do.
So it's a really cool tool, and it has a lot of power, and the UI is great. Again, it's called...
clean. It's not a lot of nonsense.
It reminded me a little bit of a Windows Phone UI, and it's a free app. It's called EasyNetScan, and you can find a link to that in the show notes.
Worth a download. Looks good.
And check it out. They've been around for a little bit, but they just recently did an update. They've got pretty good ratings, and I think they had about 10,000 installed. It wasn't like anything huge.
Right. Well, and that's really surprising because it's a cool app. I mean, it's being underutilized, obviously.
Yeah. And then, as far as like permissions wise, it doesn't ask permissions to do anything nefarious when you install it. So it looks like it's pretty safe in that regard.
Kind of a read-only experience. Yeah.
From what I can tell. Yeah. You never know. But very cool and really a fantastic app. And they also do some cool tutorial stuff when you first turn it on.
Oh, that's cool. So if you have no idea what any of this means, you can learn.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's a neat thing. Speaking of using a tool to kind of figure out what's going on, I want to talk about an app pick that I use. It's kind of video related. We're doing video editing chat today. And sometimes you download a file, and it's like an MP4 file, an M4V, a WMV, whatever, or AVI. Actually, AVI is usually the most mysterious. And it will not play in your media player. And you don't really know why. Well, there's a tool out there that's open source. It's available for every platform. I use it on all of them. It's called Media Info. It's one word, link in the show notes. And what Media Info is a drag and drop application. You take the video file, you drag it on the Media Info interface, and they have a couple of different ways they can display it to you, but it'll output all of the information about that video or audio file, whatever it is. It supports basically every type of media file, even picture files. and you just drop it in here. It gives you all the details. So here, in this screenshot, they're on a Mac, and they dropped an MKV on here. It tells you how long it is. It tells you the overall bit rate. But what's really awesome, it even tells you what versions of the libraries encoded it, so you can start doing some bug tracking that way.
Right.
It gives you all the information about the frame rate, the video resolution, the audio, the color depth, the codecs that are used, the audio codec, the video codec, the channels. So if you've got something that like you downloaded off the internet and it's in Spanish,
That's a lot better than just knowing what the container is.
you can open up and see. Sometimes with these MKV files, there's often several audio tracks, and you can toss it in there and say, "Oh, there is an English audio track." Or if you've got something that won't play, you can open up and you can get what the codec is out of this, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty much in every distro's repo too. I
think it's worth checking out. I mean, what a nice way to know what's going on with your media.
Yeah, it really people like here's what I originally used this for. I should have just mentioned this. If you find, like, say, the Jupiter Broadcasting videos look, very clean, very tight, especially for being hour-long HD productions, because, come on, hello. You can download a video. So if you find a video online that you're just really impressed with how it looks or how it's encoded or its size or whatever it is, download it, toss it in media info, get all of the information, and then you can take that and essentially translate it to your encoding. That's what I did. I said, oh, okay. I see they used X264, and then in my testing, X264, it's incredible. You just keep kind of iterating like that, using this as a guide for your own testing.
That's really handy. Yeah. I love that.
So there you go.
Sweet.
Media info. We'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Cool.
All right, Matt, our last pick this week before we get to the news. I got a distro that... a little tongue-in-cheek, I think, in the name. It's called...
A little tongue-in-cheek.
Fuduntu.
Fuduntu.
Think of Fuduntu, originally a Fedora-based distro, but later it's forked, okay? So now it's kind of its own thing. It's a Linux distribution that earned its name by its ambition to fit somewhere in between Fedora and Ubuntu. I don't quite know what that means.
I researched it a little bit, and what they were trying to go for is they're looking to provide an Ubuntu-like experience as far as ease of use, familiarity, a certain type of look to a degree. Okay. But at the same time, they are using more of a Fedora base.
So you get, so you get your Yum software management tools, and they go through and they have some different examples of, like, they ship it with Chromium, they ship it with VLC as the default media player. They've got Jupyter Power Management in there.
And they also, for power management for like netbooks and notebooks, I suspect there's more to it than just Jupyter. I would also be willing to bet that laptop tools have actually been enabled because they really stress the power.
They really do, actually.
So I'm gonna say that there's definitely something, if you got a notebook, it's worth looking at.
In fact, on their front page here, they say laptop and netbook users will be pleased to know that Fubuntu or whatever is optimized for on-the-go computing and provides tools to help achieve maximum battery life when untethered. You may realize an improved battery life of 30% or more over other Linux distributions.
And to me, that's got to be a combination of those two tools. There's no way that's... And which is awesome. I think that's well done.
Well, and potentially on what desktop you'd run, if you turn off the desktop compositor, you can save yourself quite a bit of horsepower.
Yeah, you can.
All right, Matt. Well, boy, do we have some news to get to. And before we do it, I just want to give a plug to our subreddit. We mention it from time to time on the show. Probably
big resource for us.
Probably more than we should. But it is an awesome resource. Go over to linuxactionshow.reddit.com. You can submit stories to the show, vote up or down on what makes it in. You can start conversation threads. I often will throw, I'm always these days throwing a feedback thread for the current episode, where if you have something that strikes your fancy. Yeah. So go check it out, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. And it's a good way to catch our attention, too, because we're
both there.
Yeah. Yep. All right, cool. Matt, let's do the news.
So, what's new in the news?
All right, Matt, our top story on the news docket, the number one voted story in our subreddit this week, Zareason releases the ZATab. Or is it the ZATab? I'm not...
It's a tab.
It's a tab. All right, here's the specs, folks, and then we'll chat about it. First off, I think its two most impressive features are its IPS display, which doesn't have like a rockin' resolution, but it's an IPS display, which means great viewing angles, and its 14-hour battery life, as well as as well as it's got micro HDMI, which I don't believe is working at this point. It can go. It comes with 16 gigabytes of internal storage, but you can go up to 32 with an SD card. So I'm liking that. Less and less devices are shipping with SD card slots.
And that's good. That's good.
2 cameras, front and rear. 1 gigabyte of memory. It's got Wi-Fi, 802.11bg and N.
Okay, that's
only
important.
650 grams. Right? That's not bad. No,
that's pretty light.
Now, the resolution display is 1024 by 768. So it's a 4:3 display.
Cool.
And it comes with CyanogenMod 9.
Oh, okay.
So it is Ice Cream Sandwich 404, and it comes out of the box, rooted. You have full access, ready to go.
Cool. Oh, that's cool.
So it ships, once you, so I went through here, once you kind of go through and go, let's say if you want Android, you can actually say no OS.
That's
and if you want like a video out cable, it's like $9. Yeah, that's it, like grand total.
But didn't you say the mini HDMI didn't work?
I think that's the case. Yeah, no.
Then why would they sell a cable? I don't
Note that HDMI is not working currently. A few people,
I'm not questioning you. I'm just why would they? I don't understand why they would do that. I mean,
a few people need the HDMI port as it's been harder to get the dev time on it. We would love your help to get HDMI output.
No, that makes sense. Okay.
So you're talking $358. If you buy it with the cable. Here's the thing though.
Okay.
With an unlocked bootloader, you could theoretically throw an ARM version of a distro on there. And maybe the HDMI port would work under that.
That's true. No, that's true. Certainly. Yeah.
So it's got a single core 1.2 gigahertz CPU. I think that's kind of its biggest negative.
Yeah, that's not too compelling.
That is a little limited, but it's workable.
Yes. Well, it's got some other good features, so that's cool.
Yeah, and so it'll ship with Android, but you could put any OS you want on there, which is nice. I think this is a good starting point, and I like seeing ZaReason kind of go out and sort of be a little risky with this kind of stuff. Though, I gotta say, an Android ice cream sandwich on a single core 1.2 is probably not going to be a fantastic experience. The other thing that some of the early reviews are saying is that because it's not like a blessed tablet, some things that are like video streaming services like Netflix don't work on there because it doesn't have the DRM support that it needs.
Exactly.
So I think this isn't compelling so much as an Android device when you compare it like with the Nexus 7.
So maybe more of a development tool.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think because it's got connectivity to it. It's got it's well built. It's metal. It's metal. It's not plasticky. That's kind of nice.
Well, as one person pointed out, less processor, more battery. Perhaps.
Yeah. I'm sure that contributes to that. It also has 2 micro USB ports. So you're talking if you did put like a Linux distro on there. You could load, a thumb drive for getting storage on there. You could do an external USB drive, a keyboard, mouse. I mean, with 2 USB ports and an HDMI out, this thing does have some potential to run a Linux distro. And I would bet, I would bet good money that a raw Linux distro is going to perform better on 1.2 gigahertz than an Android ice cream sandwich installation will.
Oh, absolutely. Less going on. Sure.
So interesting thing to watch.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I think if you're a developer and you're looking to get your feet wet, this is an interesting place to start. So, yeah.
Some of the early reviews are pretty good.
I think as long as you understand what you're getting into, and you're not expecting to have a typical tablet experience, because I think it's aimed a little differently. I think that's fine.
Yeah, and I think it's probably something for more of the enthusiast that it would be for like it's not something you're going to get your mom or dad.
No, that's going to lead to crazy frustration because it's just apples and oranges at that point.
Yeah. But I think it's good to see ZaReason trying to test the waters with this kind of stuff and see what happens. So
that's cool.
There we go. We have a link to that in the show notes if you guys want to check that out. While we're talking about Linux hardware, I thought this would be an interesting sort of story to bookend that with. HP is hiring 53 engineers to ramp up open source development on OpenWebOS.
Nice. Talk about opportunity.
Yeah, HP recently has been talking about getting back in the smartphone game, although Meg Whitman just said they won't have something shipping in 2013. So they're aiming for 2014.
Yeah, as long as they can keep pace and make it compelling for that time period, I say go for it.
Well, yeah, and people have been wondering, what are they going to use? Are they going to use WebOS? Are they going to use Windows Phone? I mean, HP is a long-time Microsoft partner.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with, and they may totally blow our minds. So
wouldn't that be awesome if they came out with a new touchpad or a new WebOS phone?
That'd be awesome.
But 53 engineers, I don't know what.
You know what I want? I want like Minority Report, a tablet. You do that, HP, and I'll buy one. Let's put it that way. I'm talking about where you just totally go. I mean, that would be sweet.
If anybody's going to deliver that, it's Microsoft because they've got Connect. And that's true. They got the technology. I think they've patented, although I'm not positive, what they call like a Slim Connect that actually integrates in with a webcam. You can tie that into a tablet.
And there's some pretty good hacks for it. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
I've been testing the Windows 8 OS for a client for the compatibility, and it strikes me that Microsoft didn't integrate Connect in with the Metro UI.
That is kind of
like weird. You just can't. I don't get them. Microsoft, you're crazy. You're crazy.
Oh, and I think they kind of do things a little uniquely. So
So let's talk about somebody else who's crazy.
Okay.
That Canonical over there with their Amazon integration, right? They're crazy. They're crazy.
Oh, man. Oh, boy.
Well, so we talked about last week the fact that when you were searching in the new dashes coming out in Ubuntu 12.10, you would get some not safe for work results in the spot where they have Amazon links. And at the time, OMG Ubuntu and several other sites out there were saying that they're not going to fix this problem. And and people are like, why is everybody saying that? They haven't said anything yet. And where actually that came from is the bug was marked not going to fix.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and then later on, their own community manager clarified that they feel they need to push forward on this, and they have a direction they're going with, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
right.
So clarified.
So they've done a few things now. It's official. The not safe for work switch is now integrated in with Unity. Or I'm sorry, the online results switch is now integrated. And I don't know.
It's not going to be perfect, and in fairness to them, and I give them points on this, you're working with Amazon data, so you're having to basically, firewall or filter some of that out. It's good. It's good that they're trying.
It's not good enough, and the reason why it's not good enough, and this really pisses me off, is because it doesn't disable the shopping. I mean, it disables the shopping results. It also disables all of the new web lenses, which is a huge feature of the new Unity version. So if you install the Gwibber lens or the Google Docs lens or the Wikipedia lens or
that part I don't like. No, I was good with the fact that they were disabled. They did something about the not safe for work stuff.
Yeah.
However, as you pointed out, though,
it's like a fine, you babies. You don't want the search results. You don't get any online results.
Right. And that's
so
that's
really,
not gonna work.
what the solution is not to use the switch. The solution is just to uninstall that shopping lens. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's all you have to do. It's not like it's a huge deal.
My solution's GNOME do or some of the other ones. Just use a different launcher. Honestly, that's to me truly that's what it's going to happen.
That's what Canonical's encouraging.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. If they feel that strongly about it, that's fine. I'll hide it and not use it. Whatever. And I think that's what's going to happen with most people. I think most people are going to just uninstall it if they don't want it or not use it or whatever.
I just really don't like the attitude around. Fine, you don't want search results. You don't get any online results.
No, it's
you worried about your privacy. Fine, you don't get anything. And it's like,
my guess is that it was easier, and I don't mean that negatively. I mean that factually. I mean, I think the fact that they found it to be easier to just simply block anything from coming in, block all those services, probably by just shutting down whatever they're pulling that from, whatever port or whatever.
Why not have that switch just execute apt-get remove shopping lens? And then if you toggle again, it executes apt-get install shopping lens.
I'm still a fan of the checkbox during installation. Hey, would you like this feature? No, okay. I get that they're trying to be wise and having this additional revenue, but they're going to be penny wise, pound foolish, to borrow a very old school term, and that's what they're doing. They think they're going to be gaining revenue from this, and in fact, they're actually going to end up losing a lot of heart and soul.
I don't know. I think I think it will be a net gain just because they have momentum adding new users and things like that. And
but won't have any longevity though. I don't see it.
I guess the chat room saying that's not their intention and that I'm just misrepresenting it, and that's probably likely true. It probably is the scenario. One dev, he just banged it out really quickly.
And there's still changes that can happen. I mean, it's constantly evolving. I'm not knocking them at all. I just think that they're sometimes they jump a little too quickly without explanation, and I'm sure this will be resolved and they'll take care of it. But in the meantime, I don't think people are going to put up with it.
And I guess as Shane points out in the chat room, anything like more dramatic, like doing software removal, would require root privileges, and that makes it more complicated. I just would have liked to have not felt like it's all or nothing. The flip side is there's probably more scenarios where people do want all or nothing, like schools, and business.
And that may be what's going on. There may be some actual enterprise needs there. So we'll see what they do with it.
So there you go, folks. There you go. Now, along with the toggle switch for online results, came some improvements in performance to Unity, and this is something that I've been following because I've been running the 12.10 beta for since beta 1 now.
Okay.
And I bought the latest Humble bundle.
Okay.
Loaded on my 1210 machine. Right. I've got I think it's a Radeon 6850 or something. It's a decent Radeon card in there. It's a quad core Intel CPU, and horrible performance, unplayable.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't play any of them. Any of them. Horrible performance. I logged out, went into LXDE.
No problem. Fine. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was literally that much of a difference. It was unplayable. Couldn't even use the menu system playable. Couldn't even select stuff in the menu. It was so bad.
Right.
LXDE, totally playable. Well, now I would say it is totally playable in Unity. I don't know with this latest update. I don't perceive any performance difference. I haven't done like frame rate testing.
Well, I tested it on a netbook. I actually did an update and then rebooted, and it was substantially better. That doesn't mean that it's there yet, but and netbook's a great metric to use because it's it's an underpowered machine, so you're able to kind of work with that. I definitely noticed an improvement, and I think that's great. I also, one of the main things I noticed is that when I went to Dash and I actually went to search for something, things were queuing up a little better. I suspect some caching going on maybe.
Dash also went from very, 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 very slow to just kind of pokey now. I mean, Dash is a lot better, but Phronix did ran the numbers in terms of 3D performance. Now, what they were to point out is it really depends on what driver you got.
Yeah,
and it's interesting to see how much drivers. I switched between the open source Radeon driver and noticed a significant improvement. Right.
Well, that's what I use on one of my machines now. Because and then the proprietary one, I've never had decent success with it.
So then I went to the proprietary one. Right.
Okay.
And I noticed again very significant improvements. Then I installed all the updates and went to the very latest proprietary driver, and then notice another huge leap.
Oh yeah.
So it really does depend on what driver, and that's what Phronix is sort of.
And this is gameplay and just casual usage, or
no, it's all gameplay.
All gameplay.
He's got Warsaw and Zononic in here, and he says for the most part, Michael notices that unless you have the proprietary driver, you're not going to notice a huge differential in performance in your games. The open source NVIDIA and Radeon drivers still are kind of lagging a little bit. However, not that much. Not that much, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think either that full comp-is redraw bug is fixed yet either. And once that gets fixed, that should be the final thing that gets performance.
Well, and one of the people in the chat room actually pointed out one of the bugs they fixed was basically keyboard capturing events. They actually took care of that. So, it sounds like some bug fixes are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought was interesting is that this is obviously looking at the gaming side of it. And for me, I don't do a ton of gaming, so this was definitely a different experience. But I've always found with the drivers that if I'm using an open source driver versus a proprietary driver, at least with ATI, especially with like dual desktops or whatever, it just the proprietary driver stinks. I don't like it. It's better for gaming, but as far as casual usage, I'm not a huge fan. I
really find it's card to card.
Yeah,
I find
now NVIDIA is the opposite. I would say it's very different.
Like I would say in your case, I would say if I had a 5800 series Radeon, I think the open source driver is better. I think with the 6900 and 6800s and the 7s, it's like the proprietary driver is better. And then the open source driver catches up. And
right. So you're talking, newness of card. Sure. Okay.
Speaking of games, Matt.
Ooh, yeah.
This is interesting. This show, longtime fans of good old games, GOG.com, they were past sponsors on the network. And they have a ton of games. If you ever downloaded and tried out what is it? Is it Play on Linux?
I believe
the wine wrapper.
That is one of them. Yeah, that's one of the more popular ones.
And it has it. If you go in their games section, it's just got this huge list of good old games that run under there. And so there's rumors, however, that good old games might actually start selling games for Linux directly. I guess they have an event coming up. And they're going.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they say in the second paragraph of their event, they say they're going to be supporting a new operating system soon. Though they've already mentioned the Mac by name, so it doesn't give a lot of hopes to Linux users. They haven't been very specific, and they've already got a lot of. See, some of their stuff runs in DOSBox already and things like that, so it's not that hard to get it running under Linux.
I think that. I think they will, and the reason why I think they will is because, frankly, everybody else is already doing this with all the recent. This is a good niche or niche, depending on how you say it, for them to pursue. And I think that if they're smart, they will. And I'm gonna bet they will.
It would make sense because they have they've expanded just from like the classic gaming genre that they're known for, and they're doing a mix now of modern and retro gaming, and so they're becoming much more of a distribution platform for people who want. DRM-free games that are a really good deal. And it seems like that is the perfect target for the Linux audience. And it would, I think they could make some money on the Linux
they would
platform.
make money on it. And I think they know that. I would be amazed if they hadn't picked that up yet. Going to OS 10, there's numbers there, but there's also a lot more competition happening at that point. So I think you have a real new opportunity with Linux. And so hopefully they'll pursue that.
The problem with the Mac, and I know I always say this, but they just do not have sufficient graphics.
No, you can squeak by with some games, but a lot of it's just the performance isn't there, and of course you don't have the expandability options at the level that you do on a PC. Don't mean to start any Mac hate there. We run all things in my home, but no, I would say that for gaming, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to invest there.
Yeah. All right, Matt, let's talk about a new release from the Blender project. Version 264 2.64 has been released, and the focus was on creating a full VFX for visual effects pipeline with improved motion tracking, which motion tracking is
cool.
great. So that way you can track something between frames and. So improved motion tracking and easier green screen keying. I got to look into that myself. And a new mask editor. They also have a new tile-based compositing system, which has a good performance boost, and tons and tons of smaller features and improvements resulting in faster rendering times too.
Yeah, I got to tell you, they keep blowing my mind with what they come out with, especially it's no longer just a 3D generator, for various effects.
Right.
You can really get in there and create some cool stuff.
Yeah, they just recently too, I think it was the Blender project, just released another one of those open source videos.
They did.
Which is really cool.
It was actually very cool. I was really impressed with it.
So a little bit on the green screening, just because Linux needs some good green screening tools. The two new compositing nodes have been developed, which are aimed at making green screen keying easier. This is now a new keying node, conveniently combining various features from existing nodes along with a new keying algorithm that makes setup much easier.
Well, and I have some thoughts on this because I've recently got into some green screening, and I've done this with numerous applications in Linux. And honestly, if you get some very basic lighting, I'm talking Home Depot, and even that out, and then you're willing to slide your variance slider back and forth, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's not going to be as good as like what we have here, for instance, but for just casual usage, it's not that hard. No. I think the tools are, for the most part, they're usable for most people. I never had a problem with it.
The thing is that computational power has made the tools so much better. Even 5 years ago, they were a lot worse.
No, and I'm not saying there's still room for improvement, but I would say generally speaking, I was playing with them again last night, just in OpenShot actually. As long as you got your lighting and your variance in tune, you're fine.
Yeah,
you're all right. You're doing good.
So Samsung comes along, Matt, and drops a new file system on the world, V2FS. And this is, of course, a Flash-friendly file system for Linux, obviously targeting Android devices and things like this. And, I mean, you know where this is coming from.
Oh, yeah.
Because Microsoft's suing people over the use of VFAT. And then a lot of SD cards and expandable.
This needs to happen. Initially, I was thinking, why would we? And then I really stopped to think about it. This is overdue. This is very much overdue.
And what's great about it is it's actually a file system that's specifically designed for Flash. So there's some, improvements they can make there, and they can remedy old issues that are around with older file systems that don't work so well on removable devices. So it's something to watch. It's obviously not available on any distro you're going to get your hands on today.
But it's going to eliminate one more patent trolling situation. I
wouldn't be surprised to see it shipping very soon in Android, right? I mean,
it needs to. It really needs to.
All right, Matt, the last story is just a little release announcement for a favorite here on this show. I've talked about Geary. It was my app pick a couple of weeks ago. It's a new email client for Linux. Very, very streamlined, fast. It's kind of like if Thunderbird is maybe too much, a little clunky for you, a little bloated. Check out Geary, and they've just released a new version that's really nice on Ubuntu systems. It integrates in with the messaging menu now. And lots of nice improvements in their editor and all kinds of great stuff.
Crazy integration. I love the fact that you can have that Gmail threaded experience with your messages. That's a big plus for me.
Yeah. So they're still working on it. We talked a little bit about the project on our Coder Radio podcast. Michael Dominic joined this. It's an open source project. He joined it, and he talked a little bit about his experience joining the project. So you can find that out there.
Good stuff. Worth listening.
All right, Matt. Well, what do you say we go talk with Tom?
Let's give that a whirl.
With Jonathan.
Let's give that a shot.
All right,
then. OpenShot.
You know what that means? That's all the news for this week. Now, Matt, I'm really excited to say that we have Jonathan Thomas on the line with us today, the founder of the OpenShot project, who just had a big release.
Huge.
And you've been talking with him offline and got him lined up for the show. So it's great to have you here, Jonathan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And congratulations on, is it 1.6.1 right?
It's
1.4.3.
4.3. Wow. You were right with 1 out of the 3 numbers.
Yep. Yeah. We're almost there.
That's funny how that usually works. So we've got a whole list of questions for you. But before we get rolling, do you want to just kind of give us a little overview of what's new that you're really excited about in 1.4.3?
Sure. Well, first, for those who don't know, OpenShot's a video editor.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
It can be used to take your video files, audio files, images, and mix them together in fun ways and upload the result to YouTube. So that's basically what OpenShot is. The newest release we had on October 1st, just a few days ago, and has a whole bunch of new 3D animations, which are kind of cool, which you just talked about in the release video we had. And we had some really cool features to the improvements to our timeline, which is how you move the videos and audio files around and sequence them. And so we had some big improvements there, lots of bug fixes, new 3D animations. So
lots of stuff. Yeah, I got both Matt and I had a chance to play with some of this stuff. So why don't we start at the beginning? Like you mentioned, we should clarify it is a video editor. And Jonathan, my first question when it comes to that is, are you crazy? Why did you take this challenge on? I mean, seriously, why do a video editor for Linux?
That's a great question. I don't have a great answer though.
You had a pretty cool backstory from what I remember, though.
Yeah, we I make videos with my kids, just stupid little home videos and stuff. And so we had actually one of our videos we had it stolen on a family trip, and so I didn't have a backup of it, of course. And but by that time, I had switched all the computers in my house to Linux. And so I decided I would take the raw footage and make a video again, and that's kind of where I started thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this on Linux. There's not a good video editor.
Right.
So that's really what started the I think I can do this, but I'll give it a try. Kind of blog my way through it.
So it's literally one of those projects that you start when you don't maybe quite grasp the entire scope of what you're getting yourself involved with? I mean, do you feel like now looking back at it that you've learned a lot of what's required? And now you're kind of taking it. Now that you've kind of identified what the project is, you obviously have a different direction. But originally, if you'd known how much work this was going to be, would you have started it?
Yeah, another great question. I think I'd like to say I didn't know the scope of it, but I think I knew the scope of it. I knew it would be hard. But it was a lot of fun though, and a lot of people have helped me. I feel guilty taking credit for all the cool things that OpenShot has, because there's a lot of people that help with it.
That's awesome. How big is the team?
Well, the core team is only 3 or 4 people that contribute often, and then we have, I would say, 6 or 7 people that kind of come in and out, depending on school or work schedules and things like that. And then of course we have other projects that our project depends on. Libraries and other tools, and so those all have to keep progressing too. And so,
how is that? How is working with those projects that you depend on?
It's challenging because every project, they don't ask me what I want or what features OpenShot needs. They're just doing whatever it is that they do. And so we have I think there's like 40 different libraries we use in OpenShot, and every one of them has their own team of people and their own needs. So it becomes pretty challenging just to keep up with the what's changed and what broke and who broke it and how to fix it and that kind of thing. Right,
and you can kind of see why it's been so long since we've really seen some capable video editors actually arrive on Linux. And Matt, before the show, you and I talked about you've played with a lot of different editors.
I have.
And OpenShot's really reaching a very capable point now.
The thing that impressed me more than anything is that anyone can use this editor. I've used a lot of editors on Linux over the years, and that was the one when I first started using OpenShot, that was the one thing that really stood out to me is like, there was no need for an instruction manual. I could make it work quickly and easily just based on logic. It had a logical workflow. I love that. And then, of course, when 3D titling came into the mix, I was just loving that.
Should we talk a little about how did you accomplish the 3D titling and what was involved with that? Because you have some very cool, like the Star Wars scrolling animation and the break apart blow up explosion and those some really cool stuff. What's involved in making something like that appear in a project like this?
Well, I've been working with Blender for many years just as a hobbyist, so I knew my way around Blender pretty good, and it was fun to put Blender animations in some of my release videos even before I had that feature.
Yeah.
And then people started emailing me saying, "Oh my God, I want to put 3D titles in my movies too." So, so I just started kind of getting into it, and Blender is just the coolest. Y'all alluded to this earlier, but it's just the coolest project.
Yes.
And they have a full Python engine built into it when they release it. And that allows people like me to tie in all sorts of crazy stuff. And so that's basically how it works, is with the Python integration.
Oh, okay. So are you able to sort of, as they add features, then will you be able to add those features to OpenShot?
Yeah, well, man, it's one thing for them to add features. You see how many features they add with each release. It's incredible. I don't even know how many developers they have, but it's incredible how fast they move. But it takes artists too, so it's one thing to have a technical feature in Blender, like the ability to remesh a 3D object, but then it's another thing for an artist to come in and keyframe that or build in a physics demonstration and then tie it into OpenShot. And so there's a lot of pieces, and I require a lot of people to help me for that to come about.
Now, Matt, go ahead. I don't want to.
No, that's totally fine. One thing I wanted to know about the 3D titling specifically is it would be cool if there was a way to make it more accessible for folks to develop their own, because I think that's the one thing that is really, I know it's a big challenge, is trying to get folks to come in and help you develop new 3D titles. But I know that's also a big feature that people really enjoy. I know I do, and that's the one thing I get most excited about more than anything when there's a new release, is that there's bound to be at least one or two new 3D titles that I get really stoked about.
Yeah, the thing though that I think you and I were talking about is you kind of I have reached a point with my machine. I've got a quad-core machine that now is like it's a dog to render some of this stuff.
Sure.
So how does GPU acceleration fit in with the goals of the OpenShot project?
With Blender specifically, or just in general?
Well, in general, like with working with like 3D titles or the transitions and things like that in OpenShot. Like, so when I put something in there, and those things, like when you have a 3D title in there and you have to render it out, that kind of stuff. How far out is GPU acceleration with those types of features, or is that something that is not necessarily technically doable yet?
Well, there's already quite a bit of GPU acceleration involved in Blender and the frameworks that OpenShot uses, like MLT.
Okay. Cool. That's cool.
I mean, but people, they see these, you get your Xbox 360 that can do all sorts of crazy things all in real time, 60 times a second. And they're like, why can't I do that with my video editing? Why do I have to wait for it to render? But a video editor does more than just rotate 3D objects, in real time. I wish it was that easy, but there's already a lot of acceleration, and there's really two types. There's the OpenGL, OpenCL type of acceleration, which has potential, but those are both limited because they have very narrow bandwidth to put data into them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So once you get your full HD frame of video into OpenGL or CL, then you can do all sorts of cool things, but then you got to put new pictures into it 30 or 60 times a second. That's where it bogs down.
Right, yeah.
And then the encoders and decoders, that's actually where we have the most acceleration with various video cards. We can decode on the video card and then get a raw image out of it rather than using your CPU. But
Why we're on the topic of codecs, I want to talk about codecs on Linux, because I'm not of the opinion that they're really in the same condition that they are on the commercial platforms, like specifically the Mac. And what do you see that as a constraint for OpenShot, or do you not really see that as an issue? Maybe it's something regular consumers don't have problems with, but for example, all of our pipeline is done with a lossless codec until the very end. And I don't really see a good way to do that in Linux if you're working between multiple machines. There's not like one standard format that I can move between and not lose quality and things like that.
I would say it's a limitation of the codecs in Linux. I don't think it's holding back OpenShot because we still have so much work to do, to get up to the professional level. But I can understand if, as a professional, I would see that as a problem, but for most of our OpenShot users, it's not a problem at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, especially not for like home videos or stuff like that.
And also path of progression. A lot of folks that are using OpenShot will create a video and then immediately use the ability that's built into OpenShot to send it straight to YouTube. So they never even really see it. They've created their content,
and that is
boom, it's out the door. It's on YouTube. They're thrilled to death. They were able to take care of the whole thing. That stuff's cool,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is in the future? Where are you going with OpenShot? What's like next on your I really want to accomplish this list?
Wow. We have two things that I are very high on my list. One is our timeline is currently using a depreciated library in Linux that's no longer being maintained, which is why we can't upgrade to GTK3 support, which is something we've tried to do. And we actually have a branch that's completely GTK3 except for our canvas. And so that's just the way it goes. We have all these dependencies that are always moving in different directions. So I would very much like to get a better canvas, and we're working on a few things that's pretty exciting that I'll be talking about soon on the OpenShot website. But so with that, we're going to have things. I know I saw a question earlier in the chat room about moving multiple clips and selecting multiple things and making it better in that front. And so that's the kind of features we're going to be able to add when we get a better timeline.
I would love, personally, the ability to, when you have videos in the inventory, you double-click them and they show up in the player. I would love to, when I'm playing, to be able to hit I and mark an in time, and hit O and mark an out time, and then drag that down onto the timeline, because that's a process that I use, just boom, 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 and I kind of like multiple at a time to just get them right where you need them and then write them all down on the timeline. And that kind of like keyboard command stuff, though, that seems like stuff that is just down the road. It's probably just stuff that's going to be worked on. I love the idea. I love the idea of what OpenShot is accomplishing, and I think you guys, you specifically, Jonathan, deserve a lot of credit. We have Varun Poloko 97. I'm not sure how you say
that. Sounds right to me.
And he's working on a distribution that I'm going to talk about in the future. And one of the key features of the distribution is that they always ship with a current version of OpenShot. So that's sort of now the level that the project is reaching, is people are putting that as a bullet point to promote their distribution. And I think that's something you should be really proud of.
Yeah, well, thank you. I am very proud of that. And actually, I got an email this morning that was kind of interesting. I thought I would share it if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
This was from someone that works in the Ministry of Education in Spain. And they said that on Friday they presented OpenShot to the Congress in Spain.
Oh, wow.
And they are now including it in their official Ministry of Education Linux distro that they have in Spain, which is really cool, by the way, that they have their own distribution.
That is awesome.
That's kind of exciting. So a lot of young kids will get a chance to experience open source and video editing, and so that's good for the whole community.
Congratulations on that.
That's so awesome.
Matt, any questions for you?
Yeah, and also I believe you had a update to, I think it was Debian Unstable. You were actually in the repos.
Yeah, so we got that accepted the other day, and then now I have a feature freeze exception I'm waiting to get Canonical to approve, so I can get it into 12.10 is my goal.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
We'll see.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
Well, now, before we go, the chat room is demanding that we ask the story about the guitars behind you. So we see two electric guitars, for those of you that are listening to the audio version, that are hanging on the wall behind them. So, Jonathan, what's the story there?
Those are guitars that my grandpa gave me, and I play them every once in a while. When I'm not programming free software, I try to relax in other ways. So
there you go. Very cool.
Awesome.
Nice. All right. So where can people find OpenShot and all that kind of stuff? And what's a good way to get a hold of you and things like that? Are you on Twitter and anything like that you want to plug?
I am on Twitter, but I would say openshot.org is a good place to start. If you want to contact me or get involved with the project, download it, find anything related to OpenShot, that's a good place to start. It's kind of all collected on that site.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and congratulations on the new release. It looks awesome.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
That brings us to the end, just about, of this week's show. We got a few things left to get through, actually, Matt, including some great emails and a few announcements about next week's show and things like that. But before we continue on, I want to say thank you to the fine folks over at System76.com.
Huge thank you to you guys.
You know, Matt, I've been looking at System 76 machines, and I think with the release of Steam, I'm going to get me a new computer.
The timing's right, isn't it?
I seriously think so. And so I was looking at their different desktops. We have the Wild Dog Performance in-house. I actually kind of like the, you think it's Ratel Performance?
Ratel, I believe that's how it's pronounced.
It's got the HD 4000 video card in there, but you can also go with a GTX 690 GPU. I don't know.
Yeah, you can upgrade quite nicely. You got your Antec power supply. It's got a lot of juice.
Yeah, I'm gonna be taking a look at this one because I think even if I just use it as with Steam coming out, I want a machine to play games on.
Yeah.
So I want something that has a dedicated video card, but I also want something that maybe in a year or two down the road, I'll pull the video card out, and it's got the HD 4000 has HDMI out, it has optical audio out, and it has analog audio out, so it makes it perfect for a home theater PC. And the HD 4000 is silent for cooling.
That's a good case size for it too, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'm thinking I'm going to buy it. I think I'm going to buy it as like a end of year tax write off thing.
There you go.
And then use it for my Steam gaming.
Yeah.
And then when I'm done with it as a Steam gaming machine, turn it into a multimedia system. It's got Sandy Bridge, so it's got a really good chip in it.
It's got great chip. You got plenty
machine.
of power. I mean, and you can add on to it quite nicely between your RAM and your video card. You can build that out.
So that's the Ratel performance. I mean,
nice.
We've been playing with the Wild Dog, and so I haven't got my hands on the Ratel.
Ratel. It's an animal, and I'm terrible with names, but yeah.
I haven't got my hands on it yet, but boy, I want it. Starts at $6.99. I really want that machine.
Yeah, it's a sweet rig.
So stay tuned, folks. I might end up buying that. All right, Matt, we got a few emails I want to blast through before we get out of here. And does it count tax? Does it count for tax if you admit on air it's for gaming, Chris Lass? Well, here's the great thing: reviewing Steam games, how they perform on Linux, is part of this show.
It is legitimate. I mean, you can.
Awesome.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Yep, it's cool.
It's not actually as great as you might think it is because it's only some. But anyway,
there's a different deductions and credits are totally different animals. It's
junk.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Our first one comes from Jamie, and Jamie writes, "Hey, Chris and Matt, would you consider doing a review of Lunar Linux? I'm an Ultimate Edition Ubuntu user and have been have been itching to try something not derived from Ubuntu on one of my spare P3 or P4 machines. After pursuing through DistroWatch for a while, I kind of settled on Lunar Linux, but I'd like to hear what you guys think of the OS before I take the plunge. I consider myself a novice to intermediate user."
Okay, well, that gives me some frame of reference anyway as far as...
take a look.
I think it's worth it.
I put this out here because I'd like to hear in the comment section of the show if you guys out there have tried Lunar Linux and have any thoughts and think it's something we should look into. We'll look to the wisdom of the crowd, and if we hear some people giving us kind of some cues that we should do that, we probably will. Next week, however, we're reviewing Ubuntu 12.10.
Oh, yes, we are.
It's the big review next week, so tune in next week for our review because it comes out like on the Tuesday or Wednesday after the show, and it should be in release candidate by the time
we've been playing with it fairly extensively and have had a lot of fun with it.
We got a lot of thoughts, and so tune in next week for that. Now, a couple more emails. This one comes from Nicholsa. I'm not sure. Nicholsa. He says, "Hey guys, I generally love the work you're doing and enjoying most of the shows on a weekly basis. This is the first time I'd like to give you some negative feedback.
Okay.
On this Sunday's Last, you were talking about PC BSD, obviously last week. I personally had only a vague idea of what BSD is and what the differences to Linux's are. So I was looking forward to the episode to finally get some knowledge. But you jumped right into the topic, assuming everybody already knew those things. So I had a hard time following."
That's a fair point. That was something when I was watching the show later that I realized is that we didn't spend enough time dealing with BSD versus Linux, distributions versus forks, and all these operating system versus distros and all these things. Yeah, there's a lot of things. But at the same time, we wanted to concentrate on PC BSD specifically versus what BSD is, and so I think it was kind of
what one of the kind of neat advantages you can do. But he's got a good point.
But that is fair. Yeah.
To that end, so what I will do in the show notes is I will link you to Linux Action Show Season 15, Episode 9, Newbie Linux and BSD.
There you go.
Where we go through some of the basics of what BSD is, and then also in our free BSD 9 review, Alan joined us, and he covered the really kind of this is where we really covered what's the difference between BSD and Linux. So that was another reason we kind of jumped in, is because it's not a topic that's unfamiliar to the show. We've actually covered some of that ground before. So I'll link you to a couple that you can go
That'd be a
watch.
good place to start. Yeah, definitely.
All right, Matt. Jacob writes in, says, "Chris and Matt love the show, but I have a beef that's worth airing. Not about the show, but about Linux in particular, and if even more specific, Ubuntu.
Okay.
Although the Software Center has made getting some applications considerably easier over the years, I'm still frustrated by a massive amount of apps that are not on Ubuntu's Software Center and aren't packaged as deb files. The concept of PPAs makes sense, but I don't understand the implementation. If they're part of how the Ubuntu experience will be for the foreseeable future, why do I have to go into the terminal to add them? I consider myself a hobby user. I believe the machine is supposed to work and that tweaking it should be easy, like when I want to host a WordPress site on my LAN. Some of my apps that you've recommended take me to pages I honestly just don't understand.
Right.
Some of the apps that we've recommended. Maybe I'm just too demanding, but I expect that if people want to make their software available, make the websites easier to use.
Well, there's a couple things. A lot of times the software we're recommending, of course, goes on to a Launchpad page, and that's pretty much vanilla. Here's what it is. Here's where you get it. And you obviously know what to do with it, and here's very basic command line instructions on installing it.
No, that's the problem with the Launchpad pages. Is the Launchpad pages don't give you instructions. They just give you the PPA.
Well, they have it in there, but and the layout's terrible, but there's a little thing you click and it pops up and gives you the cut. But it's not as clean and as... anyway, long story short, what we need to really address for you is that there's actually a user interface. It's a PPA manager, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the exact name.
YPPA?
YPPA manager is probably the best place and the most control you can have over your PPAs. There's other ways to graphically add those to your software selection, but using YPPA Manager will allow you to not only add and remove them, but you can actually get a better idea as to what they go to and what they do and all that sort of stuff. So that would be my recommendation for a nice GUI way of doing it.
Check out YPPA Manager. We've actually talked about it in a previous show. And also, it's part of it is up to the website.
Yeah.
apt is actually a registered browser protocol in Ubuntu, so people can. So here's an example. Here's webupd8.org, and they're talking about the new OpenShot release on here, right? See, what they've decided to do is they just give you the apt-get commands right here,
right?
And you can copy and paste those. Some sites, what they do is they are able to just give you a button that you can click,
right?
And it's the apt protocol button. You hit that, and it launches Software Center and installs it. It just kind of. The thing is you can. There's just different ways websites can display how to do it. And
I know for newbies that it can be frustrating, the fact that they automatically will actually point you to a terminal solution. But part of the reason for that is because you can copy and paste that with your mouse and drop that in. It's actually faster to add it that way than it is to use a GUI approach. It legitimately is quicker.
I'm going to link one more episode too, going back to the PSD. Brothers in Arms is another episode of Linux Action Show we did that really covers the differences between. It is like the introduction to, if you're a Linux user, here's what BSD is. So got lots of links in the show notes for that. So there you go. If you want to email the show, you can do that. Linux Action Show at jupiterbroadcasting.com, or even better yet, submit it to our subreddit. We had a few good submissions this week in the subreddit, so I want to thank the guys that did that. And the nice thing about submitting to the subreddit is the other folks can comment on it.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes the emails don't make it into the show, so you still are generally likely to get an answer if you do it on the
That's
subreddit.
exactly right. And a lot of times we will see the subreddit first.
Yes.
There's less pile up there because things tend to rise to the top, unlike an inbox where things can tend to pile up
Oh my gosh, man, I'll tell you what. Matt, you got anything you want to plug before we get out of here this week?
Nothing too special. You can always check me out at matthartley.com. I have a couple new things coming up, and I probably even have a video or two you may not have seen yet. You want to check that out, how-tos and so on and so forth.
//
It's actually Matt Hartley X. No, I'm just kidding. No, just matthartley.com is a good place. And then, of course, you can check me out at Datamation and just click on the open source channel. I have articles appearing there. But nice. Check us out.
Very nice. And I liked your recent post you did on troubleshooting sound issues. That's a good
one. For the video, I figured clearly we need a Galaxy-class Starship and Disco. That you can't go wrong with that, and the Dancing Ogre at no extra charge.
Well, what I like that you've done with you have the video, so people can just kick back and watch the video. But you've also got it all written out here with the screenshots.
And I also tried to address it in pulse or just non-pulse approach. So that I'm addressing it for both folks.
That's nice. For some people, like to get that info from a blog post instead of a video.
No, you can't do everything in a video like that because you can't copy and paste that information from a video.
You're a pro, Matt. You know.
I've been doing tutorials for a while.
You got it down. All right. Well, I have a couple things I want to cover before we get out of here. First of all, I never really plugged the fact that we have a 24/7 chat room. Yeah. Of course, we do this show live on Sundays at jblive.tv at 10 a.m. Pacific, which is also available on jblive.info if you want the audio versions. And that is 1 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. UTC. And then we have the live chat room that's going during the shows, but the chat room keeps going even when we're not here. Yep. And so I put the info in the show notes if you want to check it out. The server is irc.geekshed.net, and it's # Jupiter Broadcasting for the chat room. And I put a link in the show notes. If you click it, it'll just open up a full screen Mibit chat session into our chat room.
Sweet.
And it's a good place to go if you're troubleshooting stuff or you want to have a conversation about open source. We always have some Linux and open source enthusiasts in there. So you can find that, links to that in the show notes. Also, I want to plug next Monday, tomorrow's Coder Radio. Mike and I are going to take a dangerous and controversial road, the state of modern JavaScript and modern web development.
Oh, yeah.
Microsoft and Google have been making some interesting plays in this area, so we're going to talk about that on Coder Radio tomorrow. If you haven't checked out Coder Radio, if you want to add a new podcast to your lineup, I really have to recommend it. I'm loving the way this show has turned out, and I really think episode 16, which we just did a couple weeks ago, burnout on
you're going to come away with some great dialogue and often learn stuff here. You definitely want to check this out.
And there you go. So check out Coder Radio, and it'll be live tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific and noon Eastern at jblive.tv, and then it releases for download on Mondays. So the two shows go well together, and then later in the week you get tech snapping them, filter and side bite, and you're good to go.
Rounds out your week nicely.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the faux show with my wife.
Absolutely.
She would. Well, honestly, guys, I want lunch, so I got to mention that too.
Hey, it's a good program.
Actually is.
I do. I watch it on
is.
my Roku.
It's our fun chat show. It's like you want to just kick back and have some fun and have a little guilty pleasure. There goes the faux show. Maybe you learn a little something. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's some awesome discoveries I found recently. Definitely.
Thank you, sir. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week for our Ubuntu 12.10 review.
Be there.
I decided to go a little crazy.
Oh yeah.
Put a little orange juice with my water.
Uh-oh. Wild nuts.
So I might get a sugar rush.
Get her salads tossed and stand up on the bar singing, looking for nub in all the wrong places. I mean, yeah, that could be real.